One. Welcome. Welcome. I'm Nolan Dalla. Welcome to another edition of Slapshot. This is brought to you by Pointspreads.ca, which is sponsored by Spreads.ca, Canada's newest, friendliest, and most extensive sports betting site in Canada. So if you're Canadian or live outside the U.S., please sign up there at Spreads.ca. A lot of promotions just in time for the NFL season. What a show we have today. This is the final of 8 shows. We've done one on every division, and we've saved, I don't want to say the best for last, but one of the most intriguing for last. And I'm not talking about the division. I'm talking about my guests today. The AFC East, we're here to talk to Gary Trask, Linda Kenney Baden, and Chad Holloway. What an all-star lineup we have. Those of you who are listening, please type in your questions and comments when we come to the halftime segment of the program. We'll ask questions of our experts, and these are experts in the AFC East. Gary Trask lives in New England, in the Boston area, lifelong New England Patriots fan. What an interesting year they're going to have. We're going to talk to him about that. He's the managing editor at Casino City, and when he's let me show what Gary's life is like as an editor there at Casino City. We have a couple of incriminating pictures of you, Gary, that I have to show the world. All right, there we go. Can you see there? That is Gary. Oh, I cut his head off. Anyway, that's that's Gary hard at work there at Casino City. And I'm sorry I cut your head off, but they can't hold that against you.
Fine.
Maybe it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome, Gary. I'm sorry I kind of stepped on your line and you're showing.
That's all right. That's a great. I remember that night vividly, as you can imagine.
Well, if you can remember it, it must not have been that good. All right. We had Chad Holloway, he grew up in Green Bay Packers territory, but he's for some reason a Miami Dolphins fan. We'll ask you about that in a minute. He's a senior writer at Poker News, one of the premier writers in gambling today, as is Gary Trask. And he is also a World Series of Poker gold bracelet winner. Yes, he is. He's there at his home in his office, and he's also written a comic book. True, he's a man of many, many, many talents. And there is the man himself. There's Chad Holloway winning Poker Glory a few years ago. How you doing today, Chad?
I'm doing good. I'm pretty excited to be talking to you guys about the AFC East. Like you said, I'm in Wisconsin. I don't get to chat AFC East very often. It's usually NFC North with the people around here, but should be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, there's your moment of glory there. There's the both of you. And now I have Linda Kenney Baden here with us, our third guest. She's a long-suffering season ticket holder with the New York Jets. Linda is one of the most famous and most successful criminal defense attorneys in the United States. She's been the lawyer to Phil Spector, a trial, by the way, that she worked on that ended up in a hung jury when he was convicted later and sentenced, I think, from 20 years to life. That was because she wasn't on the trial, so there's something to be said for Linda's talents. Linda has also defended Jason Williams, the Carolina Panthers player, Casey Anthony, and most recently, yes, indeed, Aaron Hernandez. Wow, she's really an expert in the AFC East. She's been portrayed by Helen Mirren, Academy Award winner, in a movie, and she's also a regular host on the Law and Crime Network. I got to show a couple of pictures of Linda there. There's Linda with Aaron Hernandez during the trial. So that was
same earrings. I will let you know.
And then when she was defending Phil Spector a few years ago, that was one of the better pictures of Phil Spector in that trial. So anyway, well, Linda, it's so nice to have you, and we're going to rib you about not so much about the Aaron Hernandez stuff or any of the criminal defense stuff, which you're used to talking about, but we're going to talk about your long-suffering New York Jets today. So nice to have you with us, Linda. Uh-oh.
I think she's
Williams was the basketball player for the Nets, not the Carolina Panthers player. So I just want to make that little tiny weedy correction in case Jason Williams, one hand is upset with, maybe being my client.
Oh, sorry about that. I got Caruth mixed up there. Ray Caruth. I'm sorry. I completely had a moment there. So you're right. Of course, the Jets. But anyway, if anybody that's watching this gets into legal troubles, Linda Johnson's your lady, but she doesn't work cheap. I'll warn you right now, okay? So anyway, let's talk about some football, shall we? I'm curious about your respective loyalties. I can kind of see where Gary's coming from, being a Patriots fan. But let's start up with Chad Holloway. Chad, you grew up in Packer country. How come you're a fan of the Miami Dolphins?
So I was born in the early 80s, and growing up, when you were really forming your lifelong fandom, if you were like me, you were a kid, so 5, 6, 7 years old, and the Green Bay Packers weren't a very good team back then. It was Don Mikowski was the quarterback. Linda Infante was the head coach. This was before Mike Holmgren and Brett Favre really revolutionized that franchise. So nobody wanted to be a Packers fan among my friends. And so we all latched on to franchises that were successful. Somebody was a fan of Jim Kelly. Somebody was a fan of Joe Montana. I ended up being a fan of Dan Marino and have been a diehard Miami Dolphins fan ever since. So going on about over 30 years now.
Oh, cool. So you're still a fan, obviously, and certainly that's not a bandwagon team either. Talk about anti-bandwagon teams. The New York Jets, they won their last championship in 1969. Boy, 51 years ago. How did you become a Jets fan, Linda?
Well, my dad was always a football fan. So, and he was an Italian immigrant off the boat, as they say, and he had no sons. And here I was, the daughter, so I would watch football with him constantly. So I guess being from New York, and when the expansion teams came in, Joe Namath, and here he is. The Jets brought him out all the time. Right? Everyone wants to have a Joe Namath again type of year with the New York Jets, and I just became a Jets fan.
Cool. And Gary, I guess you were obviously a Patriots fan before they went on their run the last 20 years. It seemed like they've dominated pro football for so long, but boy, your loyalty paid off, didn't it?
Yeah, people think it's easy being a Patriots fan, but I'm old enough to remember back when they weren't so good, and I remember days when they didn't sell out, and we had to go to a bar or a restaurant that had a satellite to pick up their games because they weren't on TV because they weren't sold out. And interestingly enough, my dad, when I was real young, got a job at the old Schaefer Stadium down in Foxborough, selling programs just to get us into the games. So for a run of about 3 or 4 seasons, we'd go down every morning and sell programs to the tailgaters, and then sneak into the game and say we were getting more programs and go find a seat and watch the game. So I really became a big fan, even though they were miserable. But it all changed when Bill Parcells and Drew Bledsoe came along, and then of course Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and it's been a great run. But like you said at the top of the show, it's going to be an interesting year. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it is going to be an interesting year, and the Patriots, for a change, are not necessarily expected to run away with this division for a lot of reasons we'll talk about in a minute. So let's get right to our 4 teams. We're going to discuss 2 now and then 2 later in the show. We'll have a halftime, as I said. By the way, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan and you're mad because we don't have a Buffalo person on here, frankly, I tried to search for one and wasn't able to get anybody. So I'll tell you what, I do owe a favor to the Buffalo fans that when the Bills play later in the season, contact me, Facebook message me, and we'll get you on a future show to talk about the Bills. So it was not a slight. I don't dislike the Bills. In fact, they should have a pretty good season this year. So we'll talk about them first, shall we? Let's look at the Buffalo Bills, the win total. Now, this lines are courtesy of Spreads.ca. The Buffalo Bills season win projection is 9 wins. It's jaded slightly to the over. Gary Trask, why don't you take the Bills first? What do you think?
Well, I think they're a slight favorite to win the division for the first time. Like you said, in 20 years, it's been the Patriots division, and it really has been close. So they're a slight favorite, and probably deservedly so. I read in The Athletic, their great NFL beat writer. He said you take away the quarterback, and they may have one of the best rosters in the NFL. I don't know if I'd go that far, but their defense is going to be stout again. They got a great head coach. But last year, 10 wins, they only had 1 win against a team with a winning record. And that was against the Tennessee Titans. I think they won that game like 14-7. So they're taking a step up in the schedule this year. The schedule was really easy last year. It all comes down to Josh Allen. Now, I'm not a believer in him. He was the worst deep passer in the NFL. I don't think that's going to change. I don't think you can change accuracy that quickly. The last 2 years when he's under pressure, he's just been horrific. I think he ranked last year like 35th in the league. There's only 32 starting quarterbacks. So when under pressure, and their offensive line is going to be strong again. But I I just don't think he's the type of guy that's going to carry you to a Super Bowl. I just don't see it. Incredible athlete, and I think he's done maybe as well or maybe a little bit better than expected. But I just don't see him bringing them to a Super Bowl or even an AFC Championship game. They add Stephon Diggs, but he's not a good deep thrower. So it's almost like if you bring in a top running back and you don't have a good offensive line. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to take advantage of Stephon Diggs. I think they win the division, but I think it's a coin flip against them and the Patriots. I think the winner of this division will have about 9 wins, and I think that's where they're paced at. Maybe they'll eke out 10 wins. But like I said, I don't think after that. I don't see them making a deep run in the playoffs just because of Josh Allen. We saw him kind of melt down last year against Houston in that playoff game. They had that game under control, and then he just completely melted down. Maybe he'll learn from it, maybe not. But like I said, roster top to bottom looks like it's solid, but the quarterback's going to hold him back from doing any damage in the playoffs.
Yeah, excellent analysis. Very good, Gary. Linda, you have seen the Buffalo Bills a number of times, usually when they're visiting the old Giants Stadium and as a Jets season ticket holder. I think the Bills pretty much kicked the Jets' ass last season, I believe, when they played the opening game there. What did you think about what Gary said, and what do you think about the Bills over or under 9 wins? Linda, are you guys getting audio?
Yeah.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about
Can you
that,
hear
Linda.
me?
Okay, let's start it again. What do you think about the Bills?
Let's just say let's give them a plug. They really are the only New York team, remember? Because my Jets actually practice in New Jersey, right? The Giants and the Jets play in New Jersey. Now I'm from New Jersey, so I kind of like that. But the only New York team are the Buffalo Bills. So let's give them a little plug on that. We did in the last season of the game, Nolan, beat them last year when we came up, with the miracle Adam Gase winning record that we had at the New York Jets at the very end. So I'm not impressed with that. If we could beat them at the last game and they were heading into the playoffs, that kind of says a lot for where they are, where they ended up, and where they're going to begin this year. And I agree with everything Gary said. I was not a big fan. I know when the Jets were looking to pick up a quarterback at that year, a lot of people wanted Josh Allen, and I was not a big fan of his because of his accuracy problems. And again, I agree with him. I don't think that he can sling a ball. He really can go down there, down that whole stadium, down the whole field. But I don't think you can correct those.
Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with Gary in that I think the Bills are going to win this division, or at least 9-7, maybe a 10-6 record is going to be good enough to win the division this year. And with Josh Allen, he's got his issues for sure. I actually am kind of a fan, and one thing that I do like about him is they're coming off, making the playoffs. They're coming off a wild card berth. It wasn't great. They lost, right away to Houston, and they shouldn't have lost that game. Those of us who watched it knew they had it well in hand, and they just dropped it. But 2 years before that, they made the wild card and lost as well. But before that, the last time they made the playoffs was way back in 1999. And so I just like how young the Buffalo Bills are right now and how excited their fan base is. I have some friends who are Buffalo Bill fans, and they are energized. They for the better part of 2 decades, didn't have much to cheer for, and they do now. And I think that's just a contagious enthusiasm that we're going to see come through. Now, I don't know what with the pandemic going on, what the home field advantage sort of situation is going to be like, but I've went to Buffalo. The last game, Miami Dolphins game I went to was in Buffalo. I got to experience firsthand in December the sort of home field advantage that Buffalo Bills enjoy when the weather's cold, and they did thoroughly beat the Dolphins in that game. And so I just feel like the Buffalo Bills right now are a young team who have had a couple years to kind of mature, and this year, with an addition like Stephon Diggs, I do expect them to certainly compete for the AFC East title. And if I had to pick one of the 4 teams to win it this year, I do think it will be the Buffalo Bills.
It seems the Buffalo Bills have been searching for a quarterback. Certainly stability at the quarterback has been lacking for the Bills ever since Jim Kelly retired, and that's 20 years ago. And Josh Allen, a lot of pressure on him. Now, this is a pretty good defense, and they do have some skill positions. What I wonder, I think Gary touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to hear a little more detail, short answers from each of you, as to whether in the NFL today can you win with a quarterback like Josh Allen? It seems like the game has gone toward the Deshaun Watsons and the Patrick Mahomes and, these mobile, very multi-dimensional Lamar Jackson type quarterbacks. Josh Allen is mobile, but certainly not at least yet we haven't seen any skills like that. The question is, can you win with a mediocre quarterback? Gary?
I don't think you can. I mean, if you look back at the Super Bowl, and when you say win, I assume you mean win the Super Bowl. I mean, you can win 9 to 10 games, maybe win a wild card game or a one playoff game. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with a mediocre quarterback. And like I mentioned, Josh Allen last year, he really melted down in that playoff game. Maybe, like I said, maybe he'll learn from it. But I also remember when they came up to Foxborough, they had the Patriots beat.
Gary, I think we lost your audio, or excuse me for a second.
Yep. Yeah, Gary? I can't hear Gary right now either.
Yeah.
I can't hear him either.
Yeah, Gary, time out. We lost you on the audio. We'll come back to Gary in a minute. Go ahead, Linda. What about winning with Josh Allen at quarterback?
The Super Bowl, impossible. I mean, look at all the great quarterbacks you have in the NFL. Young, older, experienced. It doesn't matter. I mean, he doesn't, maybe in the future, but certainly not now. It's not going to happen.
Chad?
I mean, I like to think that you could, but if you look at the recent Super Bowl winners, it certainly doesn't suggest that you can. I do think you need to surround your quarterback with a lot of talent and put yourself in a position to win, but the quarterback play has to exceed. I mean, a great example of this, I know this isn't in the AFC East, but last year when you plugged Ryan Tannehill, former Miami Dolphins starting quarterback, in with the Titans, that was a great team, and he was a mediocre quarterback. He did get comeback player of the year, but down the stretch in the playoffs, he didn't put up, spellbinding, amazing numbers that just were spellbounded. He just did okay. Had he played over the top, maybe the Titans make the Super Bowl over the Chiefs and end up winning it. But as it was mediocre quarterback play. It wasn't Patrick Mahomes level, and I think you need a quarterback who can play at that level in order to win the championship in this day and age.
Excellent. Gary, you back with us audio-wise?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. You were saying, go ahead.
I said basically what Chad said about if you look at the Super Bowl champions in recent history, there's not many average quarterbacks there. So, without a top-notch quarterback, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. You can win a division. You can win maybe 9 or 10 games, maybe a playoff game. And I don't know if the audio cut out before I said this, that last year they came up to New England. They had New England beat. And he missed the guy in the corner of the end zone late in the game that would have cinched the game for Buffalo. Instead, he misses him, just not by much, but he missed him. And the difference is so razor sharp in the NFL. You need to be able to complete those passes when in the clutch. And if he's not going to be able to do that, I don't see them making a deep run.
All right. Good analysis on the Bills. It looks like everybody thinks that 9 is kind of right. It doesn't look like anybody really likes the over. And
I wouldn't play the over, Nolan. I mean,
okay.
You got to win 10 games to win the bet. So, I mean, I wouldn't play it.
Okay. Good analysis there. Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. And before we go to Chad first, who is the Miami guy, a couple of comments about the Dolphins. This was projected to be the worst team in football last season. And the way they started out, they were. I mean, they went 0-8. They were just absolutely trounced in most of their games. And then something happened the last second half of the season. I mean, they won 5 games. They went 5-3 the last 8 games of the season. And they were a covering machine, by the way. For gamblers, I was taking them. They were getting 10, 12, 14, 17 points. And they were covering. They were winning outright on several games. So I kind of have a love affair with the Dolphins. Projection this season is 6 wins. Chad, what do you think?
I think it's probably close to accurate. And I wouldn't feel too bad about betting the over, but it wouldn't be by much. They are going to be a 6-10, 7-9, 8-8 sort of team, but I do think headed in the right direction. And last year was interesting, right? I was on board with tank for Tua. I've been so tired as a Miami Dolphins fan of just mediocrity, of never really doing much, of finishing 8-8, maybe 9-7. The few times we do make the playoffs, we're out in the first round. We're just going absolutely nowhere. So if it took burning a season to get that franchise quarterback and to start building a future, if it means languishing for 2, 3, 4 years before we can become contenders, I am willing to pay that price at this point. But last year was special because they were expected to be losers, right? They were expected to be the worst team in the league. They traded away all their best players so they could get the draft capital. And it was just this ragtag group of football players. You kind of almost felt bad for them because the rumors were out there that, yeah, the Dolphins are going to try to lose, and who wants to play for a team like that? But you insert Ryan Fitzpatrick into the equation, and they call him Fitz Magic for a reason. And we've seen a little bit of that magic last season, where this is a journeyman quarterback who's played for more teams than I can recite off the top of my head. But he is, I think, 37-ish, and he's got a lot of an experience. He knows that he's never going to be the face of a franchise. He knows that he's never going to be a Hall of Famer sort of thing, and I think that takes a lot of pressure off him, because he just goes out there, he slings the ball around, and he has fun, and he brings that little bit of magic, and you see it in certain games where he goes off for 400 plus yards. And anyways, long story short, is that proved contagious amongst the Miami Dolphins last year, among many of the young players, and that's why you've seen them start beating teams, why they started covering spreads. And one of my personal favorite moments, when they went up to New England in the last game of the season and beat the Patriots at Foxborough and stopped them from getting, a home field advantage in the playoffs. And New England, isn't as great a road team as they are when they're playing at home. And that was evidence in the playoffs. And so the Dolphins went out on a very high note. I think they're coming back now, starting to rebuild the franchise. They're not going to go out and be a Super Bowl contender right away. It maybe win the AFC East. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there is a very outside chance if they can go 9-7 and the rest of the teams falter, maybe they sneak in somehow. But right now it's just rebuild and give Tua some time to mature and learn on the bench, as Ryan Fitzpatrick is still going to be the starter.
Oh, terrific. Linda Kenney Baden.
Well, let me tell you, Chad. I mean, we had Ryan Fitzpatrick, as you know, at the Jets for a season and a half, so to speak. Okay, when he does his thing and he's hot, he's really is magical. I mean, my poor dog Valjean was in a Fitzmagic T-shirt for like most of the season until, of course, the last game when we were going to possibly go into the playoffs finally after 49 or 48 years, and he missed the end zone there, and ended up with the interception. But he is hot, and I think that we saw again also. You guys got rid of Adam Gase. We now have Adam Gase. You're going to be hot. We are going to be, well, I can't even say it. I mean, I'm just so disappointed that we're going to have this year wasting Sam Darnold again. I think that Miami is going to show us a little bit of a lot of something. I hope we beat you guys, but I'm not anticipating it.
Gary?
Yeah, I think they're the third best team in the division. I think they're going to be much better than the Jets, and we'll talk about the Jets when we get to that. And I think they're a huge step below Buffalo in New England. Everyone talked about that last year, the tanking. Chad brought up the tanking. And when they got absolutely blown out, I think I wrote down the first 4 weeks, they got outscored 163-26. So the tanking talk was big. I don't believe that players tank. I don't believe that coaches tank. I think there's just too much pride. I think front offices may tank, and I think that's maybe what had happened. But like Chad said, they got hot. They played really well down the stretch. I think won 5 of their last 9 games. And that win against New England, trust me, as a New England Patriots fan, that was a killer. Not only did it knocked New England out of the bye, and they could have used that bye week with all their older players, especially Tom Brady. And it gave KC the bye. Everyone forgets that, but KC got a much easier road to the Super Bowl because of Miami beating New England. So it was a huge win. And interesting enough, you mentioned that. So I think the spread in that game, which was, in December, late December last year, so not that long ago, spread in that game was, I think, 16 or 17 points. This Sunday, Miami comes up, and it's a 6.5-point line. Have the rosters really dropped off or gone up that much of a difference? I guess we'll find out. I mean, there's no home field advantage, so they're not getting the full home field advantage in the point spread. But it'll be interesting to see. But two new offensive coordinator in Shangali, new defensive coordinator. I think they have 4 new starters in the offensive line. They're only favored in 2 games this season from the start against, I think, Cincinnati and the Jets. So they have a tough road to hoe, but I think they'll be much better than the Jets, and I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Jets twice and finish, 6-7 wins.
I gotta ask you a follow-up. Did you say that Chan Gailey is the offensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins. Is that really
I
true?
believe so. Is that correct, Chad?
That is correct. Yep.
My first question was, is he still in the league? And I was, is he still alive? Wasn't he coaching the Cowboys 25 years ago? And he was horrible. He's a horrible coach. What is he even doing over there? I'm gonna run out the door and bet all I can on the under on this team.
He was with the Jets for a while, remember?
Oh, he's just awful. Oh my goodness. I didn't know that. All right. Thanks for the warning.
And that really, I mean, every team was hurt by COVID-19 and not a lot of preseason practices, but I would think Miami, they really would have loved to get Tua out there in the preseason game and let him see some NFL action. This guy hasn't taken a hit since November. He got hurt late in the year, if you remember, with Alabama. So he hasn't really had any game action since middle of November. So it would have been nice to see him out there in the preseason. I wonder if they'll even maybe have a few plays for him just to throw teams off kilter. Who knows?
Yeah, I think we're going to see Tua at some point this season, but I'm one of those patient Miami Dolphin fans. I don't want to rush him into it. We're not going to win the Super Bowl this season. This is all about, a slow and steady build, get experience, get players comfortable and confident, and then we start competing in the years and the seasons to come. The Dolphins are playing a long-term game. After last season, when they traded away everything and decided to rebuild, it wasn't rebuild so we can win this year. It was, let's rebuild so we can be competitors for many years to come, maybe have some sort of dynasty like the Patriots did, where they had dominated the AFC East for so long.
All right, excellent. Well, let's go to our halftime. Very good. That's 2 teams down, and we'll have the New York and New England will be on the back end of this. We have some comments here that have come in. People asking about the Jets coaching situation, Gase being, bounced around and so forth. Linda, I know anybody who is listening to me and follows this division, please do follow Linda Kenney Baden on Twitter, because after the Jets blow a game, I know this is horrible for you, but the stuff that you write and you break down the game, you say what went wrong, particularly with the coaching mistakes that have happened. It is really, I know you're serious, but it's also very, very comical. Talk about the coaching of the Jets and your confidence level entering this season. That's one of the questions we have, Linda.
Well, one of the things is the only reason why I believe we won games last year is because we had our own criminal on the fence, Greg Williams, who's a really fantastic coach. But once upon a time, I called for him to be arrested and put in jail with the Bounty Gate, which had a different meaning back then with the Saints, okay, about hitting people in the head and getting rewarded and all that kind of stuff. So he really, and he also had at that point Jamal Adams last year, who we don't have anymore as a strong safety. But now we have Adam Gase, okay. We went through years of mediocrity. I came in, I hate to say this, the year Tim Tebow. I mean, my company bought the tickets, the season tickets, the seats, as they say, the personal seat licenses, the PSLs. All right. And it's just been like one thing after another. You just sit there and you shake your head, because I could coach better. Everybody I'm bringing, my clients, can coach better. I mean, people that don't even know football say, why did they do that? And we now have Adam Gase, who Miami got rid of, and we end up taking. I don't understand it. And I was hoping that either Gary or Chad could help me out on that, because as one of the 80,000 people in the stadium seats, when there are people watching, when we paid our money and got in, I don't get it.
All right.
Yeah,
go ahead, Gary.
It's a mystery why. I mean, I'd like to see somebody research that. Has a team ever run out and hired a guy who just got fired by a team in your own division? It doesn't make sense. I read a great stat about Adam Gase. Without Peyton Manning as his quarterback, which he had when he was in Denver as a coordinator, his offenses have finished an average of 27th in the league in yards per game and 25th in points per game. And Chad mentioned what Ryan Tannehill did after Adam left him. He tore it up last year without him. So it's a big mystery.
Yeah. By the way, a quick, before you go, Chad, a quick correction, not a correction, but just a clarification of what you said. Has any team in the same division gone out and hired the coach after he was fired? Well, you know what? The Giants hired Jason Garrett after being fired from the Cowboys or leaving the Cowboys. So not quite a lateral move. He became the offensive coordinator. Yep. But as you see, and of course he used to play for the Giants too as a quarterback. But that being said, small matter. Chad, you were saying?
You know, as somebody who experienced Adam Gase, I was very excited when he first came to the Miami Dolphins. I thought that he might be the answer to turn the franchise around, but it soon became apparent that that wasn't going to be the case. And I think one of the issues with Adam Gase that I took was that he just was too stuck on his guys or his players, if you will. And we've seen that evidence just last week or the week before. Now that he's with the Jets, he even tried to trade with the Miami Dolphins for Kalen Ballage, the running back that he drafted when he was with the Miami Dolphins, who the Dolphins really gave a chance to shine last year, who didn't shine at all last year. He looked absolutely terrible. And in fact, a testament to how bad he was is last year, the Dolphins' leading rusher on the entire team was not even a running back. It was Ryan Fitzpatrick with 243 yards. Wow. And beyond that, Mark Walton with 201 yards and Patrick Laird with 168 yards. So Kalen Ballage was not great. And yet the Dolphins were going to get rid of him. They're going to release him. It was a foregone conclusion. The Jets decided to try to trade for him because had he hit the free agent market, they weren't going to get him. The rumor has it that the Cleveland Browns would have snatched up Ballage off waivers, and they had a better on the waiver wire than the Jets. So the Jets decided to try to trade for him. They work out a trade because Adam Gase likes him. You know, he drafted him. And then Kalen Ballage, of course, fails the physical and, gets reverted back to Miami and released. But it just goes to show you some of the decision-making by Gase is I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of it when his tenure ended at Miami. I was glad to see him go. And quite frankly, I was glad to see him go to the Jets because I knew he wasn't going to be able to turn the Jets around.
Thank you, Chad. I'm so excited that he's with us again this year.
Well, let's go on and move to the I have another question, and actually it deals with the Patriots, so we'll go on and put the Patriots slide up now. And Gary, this is going to go to you, obviously, but I'm going to ask this question before we analyze the Patriots, so I'm going to give you extra time on this.
Sure.
The question is what is the mood in New England in the offseason? Now, I know we have COVID. We don't talk to each other like normal, and, it's a different, universe, so it may be hard to gauge. But are the Patriots, they've been spoiled for so long, for 17, 18 years, Super Bowl contenders every single year. What's the mood? This is the question from a viewer. What is the mood in New England heading into this season, particularly losing, a guy named Tom Brady?
The mood is really, it's a sense of excitement, believe it or not. I mean, every Patriot fan was crushed when Tom Brady left. I mean, what he did up here was amazing, and it's been an amazing run that may never be duplicated. But there is a sense of excitement because of Cam Newton, and he's just a totally different quarterback than Tom Brady. So there's a sense of excitement, and there's also realistic expectations. I mean, nobody's expecting them, especially if you look at Kansas City and Baltimore. They're just so far ahead of everyone else in the AFC. So I think there's realistic expectations. There's some excitement, but as typical Boston sports fans, if things go bad early, it'll get ugly.
All right, so let's go on and move on, and you get extra time, as I said, on the Patriots. Their over-under win projection is 9 wins. Boy, I don't think I've seen a number that low on the Patriots since probably back with Drew Bledsoe taking snaps back there in the 2001 season. And that's before Belichick era. I mean, this is a long time ago, like way back. So, maybe a little overreaction possibly by the market here. What do you think, Gary?
No, I think the number's right. I think they get to 9 wins, maybe 10 wins. I think, like I said, it's going to be a coin flip between them and Buffalo for the division. I believe I saw down at the Westgate out there in Las Vegas that they had the Patriots plus $1.80 to win the AFC East, which I think is a great price. So I might have you step over there, Nolan, because anytime I can get a coin flip at plus $1.80, I want to be all over that. I think most other places have them at like plus 120 or so. But they still have the best quarterback and the best coach in the division. I think that's the truth. Buffalo might be right below them in that with the head coach, but I mean, Belichick's the best coach of all time. Cam Newton, if he's healthy, was an MVP candidate last time we saw him in 2018. They have a great offensive line, 4 starters coming back. A lot of people forget they lost their starting center last year before the season started. That was a big loss. They had a lot of injuries last year. And they drafted this rookie, Damian Harris, running back from Alabama that they really like. And they're stocked at running back with Rex Burkhead and James White. So a lot of positives. On the negative, the Patriots have been very lucky with their schedule the last couple of years. And going back throughout Brady's career, the AFC East has just been so awful. This year, they have the 9th most difficult schedule. They play Baltimore, at Kansas City, at Seattle, and San Francisco. Tough schedule for a team that lost a lot of talent. They have to replace all their linebackers. 2 key guys on the defense, Hightower and Chung, have opted out for the season. So it's not going to be easy. They're putting in a new offense without a lot of preseason, trying to bring in a new quarterback. So for all those reasons, I think they get to 9 wins. I doubt they get to 10 wins. I think, like I said, I think the winner of the division is going to have 9 wins, and I think it's a coin flip between them and New England. If I had to choose, I'd say Buffalo's going to win the division, but at a plus $1.80 down the Westgate, Nolan, shoot down there and let's grab a coin flip at plus $1.80.
I agree. That's I didn't know that. That's terrific. I'm gonna quit the show right now. Let's yank it off and let me get my car. If I can borrow $20 from somebody, I'm going to get out on that. So, Linda, I know it's hard for you to talk sanely about those hated New England Patriots, but I think you can do it because of your the business you're in. I think you're going to be able to do this. What do you think? What Gary just said?
Yeah, you know what? I have a little other information that I deal with too, and I deal from the lawyer end. So I have to insert my lawyer career here, okay? Because I may be the only person who's going to talk about the coaching here that had an opportunity to try to serve Bill Belichick with a subpoena to testify in a murder trial, in a double homicide trial, okay? And let me tell you, when at the last day before the end of the trial, when the judge comes on the bench and says, "I got a call from Mr. Bill Belichick today who says you've been trying to serve him," all right? Let me tell you, he's very smart, all right? But you don't need me to tell you that. I just want to reemphasize that what he can do with what he has is, as we have seen, amazing. I mean, yes, he's had some of the best, but I think that he's also very smart, and I think that the Patriots are going to give, and I'm going to say this, the Buffalo Bills a run for their money. I agree with everybody so far that I think it's between the Patriots and the Bills who are going to win this division.
All right, Chad.
You know, Gary said that there is a sense of excitement in the New England area. There's a sense of excitement amongst Miami Dolphin fans as well. And that could this be the downfall of the New England Patriots? They've won the AFC East 16 out of the last 17 seasons. And, you know, the last time that they didn't was to the Miami Dolphins in 2008 when, you know, the Dolphins debuted the Wildcat, if you remember that, which was successful for a very short period of time. But, you know, ever since then, it has been the Patriots. And so now, when you take out Tom Brady from the equation, you know, he's been there for so long. We're excited to see what exactly is going to happen. Now, a lot of people think the Patriots are going to be terrible, that they're going to fall apart. I don't. I actually agree with Gary that Bill Belichick is the best head coach that we've ever seen. I think they have a great system and that they can't maybe not just plug in any player, but that their system is so good that if you plug in certain talented players, you should still be able to succeed. And I do think Cam Newton is very talented. You know, he went out of Carolina in a lackluster way, if you will. So a lot of people, I don't think, are giving him the credit that he deserves. He won the MVP in 2015 and led the Panthers to a 15-1 record, went on to play in Super Bowl 50. I mean, this is a good quarterback, and to pair him with Bill Belichick, I think could lead to some big fireworks. It could be great for the New England Patriots. And I think we're going to see early on, if that's the case, against the Miami Dolphins. They're playing in week 1. So I think that the Patriots have the potential to just continue to keep the ball rolling, if you will. But then again, there are certain things like Gary mentioned, some high-powered players did opt out of the season. In fact, I think New England had the most players opt out due to COVID concerns of any team in the NFL. So it does leave a lot of questions. And with the players who did depart, like Tom Brady and others, if you take the week 1 starting lineup for the New England Patriots last year and compare it to this year, there is a lot of difference, you know, probably more than any other AFC team, or AFC East team at least, as far as day 1 starters go. So I think there's a lot of unanswered questions with the New England Patriots, and a lot of people are waiting to see just what sort of team they're going to be. But I've learned not to underestimate the Patriots. The only thing I hate more than the New England Patriots is how good the New England Patriots are. They are. I have to admit it and take my hat off to them as a Dolphins fan. They've got it done, and their coach, Bill Belichick, is, in my opinion, the best coach to ever coach in the NFL.
Well, you make a good case for that, for sure, and the record proves it. One thing about the coaching with the Patriots, Chad talks about the player turnover, but what about coaching turnover? It seems like every time, they just pluck essentially the assistants off that sideline, and they end up coaching in Detroit and Washington and other places. I mean, it's
in Miami, Brian Flores.
Yeah, that's right. In Miami as well. So I mean, the proteges from Parcells had that, Landry had that. They create 7, 8, 10 coaches around the league. So boy, Belichick's going to have his word cut out for him this season. By the way, we're going to. Sorry, go ahead. You got something else, Gary?
To that point, Nolan, it's interesting. Not many of those assistants have had success. If you look at Charlie Weiss, disaster at Notre Dame and Kansas, Romeo Cornell. But I think some of these young up-and-coming, I think Flores at Miami obviously did a great job last year. And Joe Judge, the Giants hired him. He's never been a head coach at any level. He's been a special teams assistant for the New England for the past couple of years. So there's plenty of disciples out there. We'll see if any of them ever have some success.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we do have some hecklers out there, and I've had Linda. We're going to talk about the Jets here, so it's a good time to bring up the heckler. And the heckler is saying, "Hey, I try to read this from the screen here. Hey, Lou Holtz is available." And Holtz, of course, coached the Jets back in '75, was it? And they think that Holtz is available, so maybe they can give poor old Lou Holtz a phone call here, and if this doesn't work out. Anyway, your New York Jets, Linda Kenney Baden, won the Super Bowl 51 years ago, and they've been rebuilding ever since. Over under 6 wins, identical to the Dolphins. So what do you think about the Jets?
Well, we're going to learn a lot this weekend, aren't we, when they play the Buffalo Bills. But I would just like to point out, as a lucky person who didn't have to buy my tickets this year because of coronavirus, and I guess we'll have to not name it the Corona End Zone anymore, all right? I was looking at the schedule again today and really looking at it because I knew I'd have all of you on. I mean, is there a possibility we could go 0-17? In my opinion, I'm not sure that we can get to the 6 wins, quite frankly. We have a terrific quarterback, Sam Darnold. He's 22. He's wonderful. He can throw that ball. He can hit a dime. But we haven't had anything around him very much that's been very good, right? And we now have 27 injuries we had in the camp. Our wide receivers are decimated. I mean, we have Becton now coming on. He's going to be great to cover him. We've given him a new center. Oh my God, how could we do this? So I guess I'm going to be depending upon Greg Williams again to really come through and save Sam Darnold for next year.
Yeah. By the way, you liked Darnold last year. I remember your tweets, and of course he went out with I think it was mono, or he had an illness, and he missed several games. But you, unlike Sanchez and some other draft picks at quarterback that didn't pan out, I think you have a lot of faith in Darnold, according to what you said and tweeted, right? Right.
Yeah, I do. I liked him. I liked the pick for him. I think he is, he's young, but I think he needs a coach. And I don't think that we're going back to Adam Gase again. I don't think Adam Gase is that coach. I think you've seen some of the football he can play. I mean, as Brian Baldinger said last year, give the kid some help. Now, Joe McDonald has been giving him some help, obviously, but by, doing, by the draft, by some, players that he's acquired, but not enough. Not when the coach is Adam Gase, and I come back to that.
Gary Trask?
Speaking of trying to find some odds out there, Nolan, here's a couple that I would like to try to find. I know that sometimes there's matchups between what one team against another team, how many wins they'll have. And if they have the Jets and Miami listed at the same, I would love to bet Miami is going to have more wins than the New York Jets. Jets have the third most difficult schedule this year. And now here's another one I'd like to bet. Adam Gase is the first NFL coach to be fired.
Please.
I think they could.
Please.
If I bet it, we'll both be dancing, Linda.
I do have a prop here. It's a perfume. It's called Effing Fabulous. It actually spells it out. That would be effing fabulous. And I don't want anyone ever to get fired. I really don't want people to lose their livelihood, but I think it was a wrong.
Hey, what if Gase calls you to be his agent, Linda? You're gonna take
Never.
the call? No, that
Never.
bad.
It'd
Huh?
be like representing a certain political figure, but I won't go there because I know politics and sports do not, it's not a good thing. It's like juries.
All right, follow that, Chad Holloway.
With the Jets, it's been a long time since they've had success, right? 2010, I think it was, they made the playoffs last. They made it all the way to the conference championship. They went into New England and beat them in the divisional championship. Then they lose to the Players. And I actually, when you guys were talking, went back, I'm like, who was on the Jets in 2010? And I'm looking at it: Mark Sanchez, Mark Brunell, Jericho Cotry, Braylon Edwards. And these were some guys who I was excited about back then. And then I asked myself, who am I excited about with the Jets right now in this day and age? I was actually a big Robbie Anderson fan. I thought he has a lot of talent in the wide receiver position. And now he's no longer with the Jets. And if you look at their depth chart right now for wide receivers, you're looking at Brashard Perryman, Jamison Crowder, and Chris Hogan. I'm not excited about them at all. I am kind of excited to see what their rookie wideout, Denzel Mims, can do. If you're looking for the future, you got to look at that young talent, maybe paired with Sam Darnold. There could be something there. I'm curious to see if Le'Veon Bell can get his legs under him, so to speak, after last year. Just didn't really light it up in my opinion in the numbers. And I guess if I have to pick the one thing I'm most excited about the New York Jets this year, it's that Frank Gore is now their backup, right? And Frank Gore right now is third on the all-time rushing list. So I'm excited to see if maybe he can get a few more yards and get closer to catching Walter Payton and Emmitt Smith. That's the level of my excitement with the New York Jets here in the new season.
Nolan, can I just say one thing based on that? Okay, what Chad said. Le'Veon Bell. I love Le'Veon Bell. But every time you sent him out, it was first down, up the middle, so he could get 1 yard. That was it. I mean, you had maybe one or two other plays that you really used Le'Veon Bell, and it was terrible. And if Gase is going to do the same thing, you're going to waste Le'Veon Bell too.
It's right on point. We did the same thing with the Dolphins. He would never, with a lot of the wide receivers who we knew had long ball abilities to catch it downfield, we were screaming, why doesn't Gase call some of those plays? And he never did. He just kept it very simple, very predictable. And, I feel for you going through the Adam Gase situation you are, because we went through it in Miami. And, I agree. He'll probably be the first head coach fired. And, the Jets can start preparing for the future. They do have the young quarterback. They do have, the rookie rideout I just mentioned. They do have some young talent. It's just going to be a while before it all comes together. And
the offensive line is a disaster. And I think Linda mentioned it, that the skill position players have had a lot of injuries. They only returned 50% of the offensive snaps from last year. So the continuity is going to really hurt them. And like I said, they start the season. They have to play Buffalo in the first 8 weeks. They got to play Buffalo twice, Kansas City, San Francisco, at Indianapolis, at the Chargers, Arizona, and Denver. I mean, that looks like 1-7 or 0-8. So without an offensive line, their secondary is terrible. I think it's a disaster of the season. And that's why I think Gase is going to be the first coach fired.
Yeah, they may not be favored in any of those games. Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Well, just going to say the AFC East as a whole, all four teams have very tough schedules this year, just given the different conferences that they're playing. All the teams that we've talked about today are going to struggle in certain games, against Kansas City, the reigning Super Bowl champs. If any of the AFC East teams can beat them, good for them, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
All right. Final word. Actually, a question I have for Linda again, she's going out there and freezing in their seats and I guess it's, what is it called? It's not Giant Stadium anymore. It's called MetLife. MetLife, yeah. So
most expensive stadium in the world, $3.8 billion to build, and it doesn't have a roof.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm curious about one thing. I've been to a Jets game. This was several years ago, but talk about a great tailgating atmosphere. It's very, very festive, and given how bad the team is, the fans are always in the stands. The tailgating is there, and so forth and so on. And it reminds me a lot of the Chicago Cubs. If just this team that was so bad for 70, 80 years, and the fans still show up almost as though they're expected to. I don't want to say expected to lose, but there's a certain camaraderie with this team that's suffered for so long. Now, you're actually in the stands and you go to all these games. Would you agree with that comparison to the Cubs? And the fans?
No, I don't only agree with it in terms of the tailgating. The tailgating is amazing, and that's also what Giants Stadium too. The fans in New York are amazing for tailgating, but we're right at the 50-yard line. My LLC seats are right in the coaches club, right there. And in the 7 years that I've had those seats, I have never sat next to the same person ever in any single game. They're all tickets that are either being given away by corporate or being sold secondarily for much less than, last year you couldn't even give them away. People wouldn't even take them. Okay. So I think that the tailgaters are great, but in the stadium, it's just not there.
All right. Excellent. All right. Well, good panel. A lot of good stuff there. Thank you very much for coming on the show, everybody. Chad, Gary, and Linda. And I have one final question for you. I've done this on every single show with each guest. I ask you to make a prediction for the Super Bowl. Now, Linda Kenney Baden is going to fly us all to the Super Bowl. Let's say. Let's imagine this. She's just got another.
I would to see Mahomes. I would. I want to see Mahomes in person so bad.
Wait! Don't give your answer yet. Let's just pretend Linda just got another scumbag off. And she got a big check. So she's going to fly us all to the Super Bowl. And we want to know what two teams are we going to be watching, who's going to win, what two teams are we going to be watching, what team is going to win. And then also in your answer, please, give us the surprise team, not just from this division, but from the entire NFL. Who's the team to look out for among 32 teams that could really surprise a lot of people? Now, you didn't know that question was coming. Who wants to take it first?
I'll take it first.
I'm the layperson. You want to take it first, Gary? Because I'm the layperson. What do I know?
Go ahead, Gary.
I hate to go with chalk, but I think Baltimore and Kansas City are the top two teams in the NFL by far, and I think Baltimore is going to win the AFC. I mean, the numbers they put up last year. I was reading, doing some preparation for the season. They scored on 57% of their offensive possessions last year, and they have 10 of 11 starters coming back on offense. They face a pretty easy schedule of defenses. I think they learned from that playoff loss. I think Lamar Jackson's going to get better and better. Week 3, they have Kansas City at home, and that could decide. That could be vital for the number 1 seed. And I believe this year with the new playoff format, only one team gets a bye. So that number 1 seed is going to be huge. I think Baltimore gets it, and I think they beat Kansas City in the AFC Championship. In the NFC, I think it's wide open. I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer on New Orleans. 26-6 the last 2 regular seasons, but hugely disappointing in the playoffs. A couple of massive heartbreaking losses that the Saints fans will be talking about for decades to come. They have a great offensive line. They added some weapons with Emmanuel Sanders. The Alvin Kamara situation has been worked out. I think they get it done this year. I think they go to the Super Bowl. And I'll call for them to upset Baltimore in the Super Bowl. And maybe Drew Brees will ride off into the sunset like John Elway and Peyton Manning did with the Super Bowl in his hand. I'll take New Orleans at 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. As far as the surprise team, I think it's the Cleveland Browns. Last year at this time, they were the darling of the NFL. I mean, everyone was all over them, and it was a disaster. They went 6-10. I think Freddie Kitchens, the head coach, was in way over his head. And Kevin Stefanski comes over from Minnesota. He's the new head coach. I think his offense is really going to work well for Mayfield. Their schedule's much, much easier this year. Nobody's talking about the Browns. I think they're going to start slow because they have new coordinators and a new head coach trying to put in a new offense. I think they'll start slow. They have a tough schedule to start out, but I guarantee there'll be some value on them in the late stages of the year, and I think they get up and over their win total.
What terrific analysis. Follow that, either one of you.
I'll go ahead and offer mine. I'm going to agree with Gary in that the AFC, the 2 best teams are the Chiefs and the Ravens. And I think as a whole, the AFC teams are much better than the NFC counterparts. I think that the Chiefs are going to make it back to the Super Bowl. I think this year for the NFC, I certainly do like the Saints pick. I could see them doing well. But I think for me this year, it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings finally putting all the pieces together. I think they're going to win the NFC North. The Packers won it last year with a 13-3 record. And I can tell you, being from Wisconsin, being friends with a lot of Packer fans, they would tell you that they were the worst 13-3 team in history, that record was much better than the actual talent on the team, and that they snuck out a lot of wins. And I think the Minnesota Vikings will win the NFC North. I think they'll go on to the Super Bowl, but I do think they'll make it there against the Chiefs and ultimately lose. I think that the Chiefs are going to go back-to-back.
Linda Kenney Baden, your closing argument.
I am splitting the baby here because you all know that I love Mahomes, and so I think Mahomes is going to bring the Chiefs back to the Super Bowl. And I'm also going to say I think he's going to win the Super Bowl. And I would go see him against the Jets, except I don't want to pay the money to fly out to see him in Kansas City against the New York Jets. All right. I think the team is going to be Minnesota. I agree with Chad on this. Although I love Drew Brees, I think that Drew Brees cannot lead that team into the Super Bowl this year. I think it's close, but it's not going to happen. And I love Mayfield. I think Mayfield is a sleeper team. I agree. So I'm splitting the baby. So we're all kind of on par, aren't we?
Wow. Yeah, I'm a little bit speechless. I did not expect to hear either the Minnesota Vikings or Cleveland Browns. Again, this is the 8th show. And, you know, obviously Baltimore and Kansas City are very popular choices. In the NFC, it's always New Orleans. I don't recall anyone picking the Browns. We've had a couple of people here, and then a lot of love for the Vikings. So I am surprised. And you know your stuff, so maybe there's a reason to jump over to spreads.com. See, I know I see the segue out there. Jump over to Pointspreads.ca and get your money down on the Cleveland Browns and the Minnesota Vikings if you like what you heard. Or bet the under against the Jets, like a couple of our panelists have said. Or bet the over on whatever you want to do. Anyway, this has been a great show. Thank you for joining me. Gary Trask from Casino City in the great city of Boston. Linda Kenney Baden, criminal defense attorney from New York City. Thank you for joining us. Your first time on the show. I hope you'll come back. And Chad Holloway, they're from Poker News and other places, comic book writer, living in Wisconsin, and the long-suffering Dolphin fan, maybe not for long. I'm Nolan Dalla with Slapshot, Pointspreads.ca. Visit us online, and we're going to try to do this every single week. We're going to have a show talking about the spreads coming up. We'll have different guests every single week, all the way through the Super Bowl. Let's hope we get there, and we get on that private jet that Linda's going to pay for. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.